Let's learn how to create a public SSH key using Keygen. But first, what is an SSH key? Well, it's simply an authorization vehicle that allows you to authenticate on the SSH protocol. Similar to how we use username and passwords when we're logging in to things like a Facebook or in this case, GitHub. In particular, what we can use it for is if we're on a repository and we go to clone it, we actually have an option called SSH. And you have to have a public SSH key added to your profile in order to use this option to clone to your local computer. If you don't have any SSH keys added to your user profile, what can happen is you'll get this message saying that you don't have any and you won't be able to clone this repository via SSH. But in reality, if it is a public GitHub repository, you can actually clone it anyways. If I copy this and then go here, do git clone and then paste and then hit enter, it will actually clone it anyways because it is a public repository. Let's go ahead and remove that so I can show you when it's a private repository. So now I've made this repository private, and if I go to code and then go to SSH, again, I'm met with the same message. If I copy this, go over and then do git clone and paste, and then hit enter, it should error out telling me, hey, I don't have the access rights because I don't have an SSH key that's added to my account. So let's go ahead and create that key. Let's first clear this. And now I'll show you how to use SSH Keygen to generate a key. If we just type in SSH-Keygen and then hit enter, it'll then prompt us with things that we can select. So this first thing is, where do we want the file to be saved? For this particular thing, it's saying to save it under ID_ED and then some numbers after it. So I'll just allow that and I'll hit enter. For here, it's asking for a passphrase. This is an added security measure in case somebody were to compromise your PC. They would have access to these SSH keys, but if you added a passphrase, they wouldn't be able to use the SSH keys unless they also knew the passphrase. This is because every time you use this key, it will actually ask you for the passphrase, so you have to type it in every time. For me, I'll just hit enter again. It's going to ask for the same passphrase. Again, you can have nothing in it for that. So now it's actually created an SSH key, and you can see the public one under ID_ED, the number, and then .pub. This will be the one that we copy. We do not want to copy the file that is the original SSH key because this is our private SSH key. This then gives us the SHA-256, and this is the encryption that is made for the key itself. And what we'll do is we'll grab this public one and we'll put that in our account. So to grab it, what we can do is we can type in cat, which will output the file. And then I know this is my home directory. So what I can do is I can just do tilde and then do /.ssh. And then I'll type out whatever it is showing me here and make sure that I'm using the .pub. And you can see that it has created this SSH key. What we'll do is we'll just highlight this and then I'll right click and I'll hit copy. And then I'll go over to GitHub, go to my user, go to settings, scroll down, then go to SSH and GPG keys. And from here, we'll add a new SSH key over here on the right. When we click this, we don't necessarily need to give it a title, but you could give it some description as to what computer the SSH key belongs to. And I'll just paste in the key here. Now, by default, what it'll do is it'll grab this end of the SSH key and use it as a title if you don't put anything in the title. So when I hit add SSH key, it'll automatically create it. You can see here's the title. So now I should be able to use SSH to clone the repository that we saw earlier. Then we'll go back to our repository, then go to code, and then go to SSH, copy this URL to the clipboard, go back to the git bash, do git clone, space, and then paste in that URL. Then I'll hit enter and it will clone the repository and do all the necessary things inside of the SSH protocol to pull down that repository from GitHub onto my local machine. Now, a few things to note. If you have multiple SSH keys like I did, so when I created the new key with the keygen, what happened is it will actually not use that key. I have to start an SSH agent and then add the key to the agent in order for it to authenticate with the correct key for GitHub. So basically, if you have multiple keys, say one key is on a different account and you want to create a new key for this account or something like that, what you'll have to do is you'll have to start the agent. To do that, you can do eval and then SSH agent and then -s for silent. And it will evaluate the SSH agent and it'll run it in its own process. Then it gives you a process ID that you don't have to actually use, but you just know that it's then running, because if I do PS to see what processes are running, you can see that the SSH agent is running. From there, you'll have to add the key that you want to use right now to the agent. So I'll use SSH-add and then whatever key that I want to use. So in this case, I want to use that ID_ED, the one that I just created. And then when I hit enter, it will add that identity to the SSH agent. This allowed me to do the git clone. Even though I have multiple SSH keys, it now knows which one to use. You can actually add more than one. If I add the original one that I have, which is just the ID_RSA, because that's what I called it, it will actually add both of these. So now I have two, and I can authenticate on both accounts that I have these keys associated with. So along with this, GitHub isn't the only place that you can use these keys. In fact, you can use them anywhere that SSH is used. So you could use it for a server. Say you want to just automatically be able to log into a server. You could add your public SSH key to that server, and then you don't have to type in a username and password every time you want to access the server via SSH. So that is how you create an SSH key using SSH Keygen, and how you add it to your GitHub account, as well as use it for pretty much anything that you need SSH for.